Good morning, Shaun. It's Gran. I just wanted to thank you for spending the day with me. I really enjoyed seeing you and being with you. All right. Have a good day. I know you're busy. All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
This special episode of Shaun Spins is brought to you by Gloria's Bingo and Cards Emporium, Plant Life Brown's Flower Shop, a great place to be, and Bruce's Comic Castle. They got everything you need.
Welcome to Shaun Spins. I'm your host, Shaun, and I hope everybody's safe and well, and welcome to episode 50. Episode 50. It seems like the other day, my father was talking to me about, why don't you start a YouTube channel talking about your love for music? And here we are now. A big part for me with this channel was his DIY approach of using free software and trying to figure out how to make entertaining videos that express my love for music and document like a journal of my life with music and everything that went along with it. I really appreciate everyone's support on the channel. I even made a list of some particular people I wanted to call out that have always encouraged me on the channel. My channel might be a little different than some people that make videos about vinyl finds and reviews, and yet I've always appreciate just the real great encouragement and support I've gotten from a group of individuals that I made a list to talk about them. Russ, Ben, Ian, Monty, Maria, the Doctor and the Kid, Bruce, Aaron, JT, Mark, Shaun, Chris Burt, Vinyl Groovers, Steve, Plant Life, and my father. And anyone else that's ever commented on my channel and come along on this journey. One of my favorite comments I've ever got in my life is a person had mentioned to me how much they loved my video, and I come to find out later they were homeless. And it felt so good that my video made them happy, and it just meant the world to me that the video somehow put a smile on their day. Got a great episode today for episode 50. It's an episode I've been working on for at least 3 months, and many things that come up in my life that has put a stop and a hindrance to finishing the video, yet here I am today. The album we're going to be talking about today is David Bowie and the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. Let's get started. I almost forgot to thank the producer. Oh yeah, you look really happy. Thank you again, sir. You're the best. Whew. Well, let's get back to episode 50. David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. This album has been in my life forever. One of my earliest memories is listening to my father talking about seeing David Bowie multiple times, including at Pirates World. I can still remember him telling the story of seeing him during The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars tour, and then the next show, seeing him like a year or so later, and the act completely changed, and it wasn't what my father was expecting. This album just was always around, and it's clearly my favorite David Bowie album. It is such a favorite of mine. It is actually listed in my will that I will be buried with one of my vinyl copies of this album. I must have wrote that in my will 20 years ago. That's how important of an album it is. When I was growing up, one of my first jobs was working in a kitchen with my father or my cousin doing dishes for this country club restaurant. And they had a radio really high up, I remember, on this shelf. And In between listening to stories from my father and the chef talking about different bands they saw, I would just be wishing that this local radio station would play a David Bowie song, and they would play one of three: Space Oddity, Ziggy Stardust, or Suffragette City. And I remember getting extremely excited if they played one of the two songs from the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And I must have been 11, 12 years old. So this album has always been very, very important to me. It's just an amazing album. Now, the album came out in 1972. And at the same time, Looking Glass's album came out. And I often wonder now, in the last 5 months or so working on this video, how many people went into Tower Records or Peaches Records or whatever record store, local department store, Kmart, and picked up that Looking Glass album and not the David Bowie album. I wonder how many people did. They're like, David Bowie? Looking Glass, ooh, it's a good album. So I wonder what those relations to how many people bought Bo for one. Just a thought. The album is just amazing. Now, growing up, I was aware who the Spiders from Mars were. Yet I always thought that the main sound of the album came from David Bowie. I thought everything about the album was just because David Bowie worked on it. You know, David Bowie, David Bowie, David Bowie, David Bowie, David Bowie, David Bowie. Yet I realized as I got older, that sound of the album and the songs and the structure, everything about that album, I realize now as I get older, a big part of what made that album so special to me is Mick Ronson. And, there's a thought that, without Mick Ronson, I wonder how much different that album would sound and feel. It was amazing. It's an amazing album. Now, the idea of Ziggy Stardust from another planet, the character itself, Ziggy, comes from two different parts and ideas I've heard from David Bowie. One being Iggy Pop. And as I got older, I realized, Iggy and Ziggy sound pretty much the same. You can almost change the song from Ziggy Stardust. You could hear David instead saying Iggy Stardust. And the other part is Vince Taylor. Now you're probably asking yourself, Shaun, who's Vince Taylor? Well, brand new Cadillac. Now for me, other than my father, there are two individuals in my life that remind me of this album very much. One is a person I grew up with that reminded me very much of Ziggy Stardust. He felt like he had came from another planet as a guitar player. He would play with such passion that the guitar picks would begin to break apart. I remember one time listening to him play guitar, I was like, what is that smell? And I realized it was the guitar pick just falling apart. Unfortunately, he also had a self-destruction mechanism in him. And I imagine similar to Ziggy. And the other person for me is a good friend of mine named Dino, who passed away a few years ago from cancer. Now, he had a few ways of greeting me. Usually on the phone, he would yell out slut. That was his term of endearment for me. And in public, he would yell out the line from the 5 Years song from David Bowie, didn't I meet you or see you in an ice cream parlor? And this would be said every time I saw him in public. And our friendship started from our love of David Bowie and talking about David Bowie's music. For me, even what national news I tuned into changed the day David Bowie died. The station I usually watched, they started off on some frivolous story, and I changed it right away, and the other national station was just starting. And they were showing images of David Bowie and playing Starman. And from that day on, for years, I changed what station I was watching, and it meant the world to me that that was the first story they covered, and playing that song, because that's what David Bowie felt like to me, like a Starman that came to us. Let's get into my copies of the album and break down the songs. Let me share with you my copies of David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. I have it on CD, on the compact disc. I was a little upset when I got this CD. It was sold to me as brand new, yet it's got a punch out right there. I have 3 copies on vinyl, as stated earlier. It's actually written in my will that I will be buried with one of these copies. I'm not exactly sure, which one's the oldest and what the different serial numbers mean. I do know one has a barcode on it, so that must be a newer version. Yet I'm not really up on the serial numbers and stuff. I'm not a real Discogs kind of person. So here's the first copy. Yeah, that one's got the barcode. Second one. And the third one. This one still has the price tag on the back when I bought it. Probably 20, 25 years ago. This one I bought for $5. Yep. Now the vinyl's a little different inside. One's got the orange label. The other one has the black label. And the first one on the front says previously released. I will also share that the colors on each cover is a little different. They get a little orangey or kind of that blueberry tone. Now I also have it on 8-track. One of my favorite 8-tracks I've ever found. I remember I found that on the way home from Fun Spot Arcade. Stopped in a little tiny record shop. I think it was near where Jay Mascis lives, and I found it on the counter, and I was like, wow. I've never seen it on 8-track. Now, the songs, the album, it's one of these albums I can listen to from front to back, and I just find it amazing. The only track I feel as though that does not belong in the album is 5 Years. And it just sounds and feels a little different. Now, as I said earlier, my friend Dino always said the one line to me from 5 Years, like, I thought I met you like in an ice cream parlor. Yet after that, you go on this adventure with Ziggy. From Soul Love is just amazing. And let me just point out again, the Spiders from Mars band, the musicianship is just wonderful. Moon Age Daydream. That alone right there, that song alone, the difference between Looking Glass, Brandy, and I say Brandy, and you get Moon Age Daydream. I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa coming for you. Right there, I'd rather have the David Bowie album. I know that John Frusciante loves David Bowie and he's covered David Bowie material. Yet I've also heard him cover Brandy. Oh man, I'd rather cover Moon Age Daydream. If I could cover one song, that would be the song I would cover. Goes into Starman, and Starman is a beautiful song. If you want an interesting take on Starman, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox movie. I believe it's the extended version where he has the his like music show in the 1970s. Variety show, there's the word. There's a scene where they're all dancing to Starman that's quite interesting. Another great movie that uses David Bowie music is The Life Aquatic. If you want to hear these songs and other David Bowie songs in Portuguese, great movie. It Ain't Easy, going into Lady Stardust. Now, for the longest time, Lady Stardust was my favorite track on the album. I'm going to say at least 10, 15 years. And my favorite track on the album must change all the time, but Lady Stardust stayed the same for a while as being one of my favorites. Goes into Star, Hang On to Yourself, into Ziggy Stardust. Now, Ziggy Stardust, I heard the most on the radio growing up. And then going into the next song, Suffragette City, which I heard a lot too. Now, the ending of the album is quite amazing. So towards the end of the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, the album starts really going up-tempo with the track Ziggy Stardust going into Suffragette City. And then all of a sudden, it kind of just feels like you fall back to earth. And the last track is Rock and Roll Suicide. Very powerful track. And for me, this track crescendos in a way that I don't feel alone anymore. And I feel as though that Ziggy, David, is here for you, here for me. It's just a beautiful track. You know, some of the vocals in the track, oh no, love, you're not alone. You're watching yourself, but you're too unfair. You got your head all tangled up, but if only I could make you care. Oh no, love, you're not alone, no matter what or who you've been, no matter when or where you've seen. All the knives seem to lacerate your brain. I've had my share, I'll help you with the pain. You're not alone. And he just repeats, and the band too, saying, because you're wonderful. You're wonderful. Like, give me your hands. Just an amazing track to end with, to realize that you're not alone. Amazing, amazing track. I must have said it about 1,000 times. This is clearly my favorite David Bowie record, if not one of my favorite records. It's a great album from front to back. Just wonderful. I'm wondering in the comments if you could put down your favorite David Bowie record. I'm wondering if some people relate more and like more Let's Dance era, or some people similar to Kurt Cobain, the man who sold the world era. Another great album for me from David Bowie's Hunky Dory. Yet the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, I always go back to. Always. I'm very thankful, where I grew up, being exposed to different people and different cultures. And I'm also thankful for David Bowie for that too. Not just art and music, yet passing on this level of understanding and compassion for people of different sexualities. And I'm thankful for David Bowie for that also. Truly a great musician. And the Spiders from Mars, just a great band. And that's about it for episode 50. I truly do appreciate everyone that supports and watches, and I enjoy making these. I enjoy experimenting with trying to figure out how to make these videos and documenting and making a journal of my life. And I hope you're enjoying them too. And until next time, I hope everybody's safe and well, and take care and be nice to each other.
Hi, is this Shaun Spins? I'm calling about the giveaway. It appears I was a winner for a giveaway I didn't enter. If you could call me back in regards to that, that would be great. Hope everything's going well with you, sir. Call me when you can. I know you're probably busy. So I hope all is well.